Judy Garland is more than just an actor. She is an icon, a timeless force of raw talent who burned brightly amidst the darkest storms of Hollywood. The world was captivated by The Wizard of Oz, a performance that etched her image into the memory of an entire generation, not just with applause, but with absolute reverence. Her voice soared across decades, fragile yet indestructible, a blend of innocence and ache that no one could forget. But few have ever seen the real person behind the spotlight, the one who bled in silence, who stood tall against the chaos, yet carried wounds that never healed. Behind the velvet curtain was a soul quietly collapsing, a battlefield of silent suffering. And soon, an even deeper abyss would open, threatening to pull her back into the darkness she fought a lifetime to escape. Before we begin, if Judy Garland's films and music have ever brought you hope, tears, or laughter, please leave a like as a tribute to the woman who sacrificed so much to light up the dreams of others. Few know that her first and most brutal battle wasn't fought on stage or screen, but began with the cold silence of an abandoned childhood, where applause replaced affection and contracts suffocated innocence. Comment your city and the time you're watching this, because her story is one that stretched across time zones, continents, and generations. Frances Ethel Gum entered the world on June 10, 1922, in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. To the world she would become Judy Garland, but in that small Midwestern town, she was simply the youngest daughter of Frank and Ethel Gum, vaudevillians who believed the stage was their destiny. The Gums owned a theater, one of the few bright escapes in a place where winters froze dreams before they could form. Yet even in their modest theater, young Frances was never shielded from the consuming ambition of her parents. She had two older sisters, Mary Jane and Virginia, and together they performed as the Gum Sisters, an act that combined wide smiles with forced cheer. The Gums were relentless. They saw in their youngest child a spark, a vibrancy that could ignite audiences in a way her sisters could not. Ethel, in particular, was infamous for her single-minded drive, dragging her daughters from performance to performance, demanding perfection and feeding their lives with the promise of fame instead of the nourishment of a normal childhood. To those around her, Ethel was a stage mother in the truest and harshest sense of the term. It was said she ruled rehearsals with an iron will, determined to transform her children into stars, no matter the cost. By the age of 2, Frances was already stepping onto the stage. At 3, her tiny voice astonished audiences with its depth. The applause was intoxicating to her parents. For Frances, it was confusing. Her sense of self became tied to performance, applause her only form of love. This was not the carefree upbringing of a child. It was the beginning of a contract with fame that would never let her go. The Gums moved often, chasing opportunity. By the late 1920s, they relocated to California, where the promise of Hollywood gleamed in the distance. They settled in Lancaster, a desert town on the edge of Los Angeles. Frank managed a theater, but whispers followed him, rumors of affairs with young men, scandal that made life precarious. The family's stability hung by a thread, and Ethel's ambitions grew only more ruthless. The Gum sisters were pushed onto bigger stages, from local fairs to vaudeville circuits, dressed in matching outfits, forced to smile under hot lights. Audiences laughed at the family's name. The Gum sisters was hardly glamorous. So when comedian George Jessel suggested they rebrand as the Garland sisters in 1934, it was a small but crucial shift. Frances, at just 12 years old, chose her new first name, Judy, plucked from a popular Hoagy Carmichael song. The transformation from Frances Gum to Judy Garland was underway, and it would be as permanent as it was devastating. In those early years, Judy's voice was her golden weapon. Rich, expressive, and far beyond her age, it carried a depth that critics marveled at. She could sing with the ache of a grown woman, despite being only a child. Yet this gift was a curse. It trapped her in the role of the family's breadwinner, her talent mined for survival. Every performance carried the weight of her family's finances, and every mistake risked her mother's fury. By 1935, Judy auditioned for MGM, the most powerful studio in Hollywood. Her performance of Zing went the strings of my heart stunned executives. Louis B. Mayer himself saw her potential, though he hesitated. She wasn't blonde, tall, or glamorous like the other MGM starlets. She was small, with soulful eyes and a voice that could shatter hearts. Against the odds, Mayer signed her. At 13 years old, Judy Garland officially entered the Hollywood system, a system that would both crown her and destroy her. The contract promised opportunity, but also slavery to the studio machine. Judy's life was no longer her own. She was caught in a factory of stars where image mattered more than humanity. Studios dictated her weight, her friendships, even her thoughts. MGM executives decided Judy was the girl next door, plain compared to Lana Turner or Ava Gardner, yet indispensable because of her unmatched voice. They positioned her as the relatable teenager the underdog audiences would adore. But before Dorothy's ruby slippers, before Carnegie Hall ovations, there was only a girl from Minnesota whose childhood had already been stolen. Frances Ethel Gum never truly existed in the eyes of her parents or her studio. Judy Garland was their invention. Behind her new name lay an exhausted child, still aching for love that would never come freely. The stage was no longer a dream, it was a trap. And yet, that trap would soon catapult her into cinematic immortality, with a single role that would define her forever. The making of Judy Garland was not simply the story of a young girl stepping into stardom. It was the calculated design of a studio system that specialized in turning vulnerable adolescents into manufactured legends. When MGM signed her in 1935, they didn't just acquire a contract, they acquired control. At 13, Judy was swept into the factory of dreams, and the machinery of Hollywood quickly began reshaping her into someone she barely recognized. At first, MGM executives weren't certain what to do with her. She wasn't conventionally beautiful by Hollywood standards, especially when measured against glamorous contemporaries like Lana Turner or Hedy Lamarr. She was shorter, rounder, and still trapped in an awkward adolescence. Yet the moment she sang, doubts vanished. Her voice carried a power that seemed impossible for her age, and that power became the foundation of her career. The studio decided Judy Garland would be their girl next door, relatable, wholesome, the embodiment of youthful sincerity. But sincerity in Hollywood was always artificial. MGM's handlers knew that audiences adored innocence, so they stripped Judy of her childhood in order to sell it back on screen. She was placed in the hands of vocal coaches, diction trainers, choreographers, and image consultants. Every inch of her was scrutinized. Executives referred to her cruelly, calling her the fat little pig with the great voice. Insecure by nature, Judy internalized their cruelty. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw not a talented girl, but the flaws MGM magnified. Her body became a battleground. The studio placed her on strict diets, limiting her food intake to black coffee, chicken soup, and cigarettes. At 14, she was already hooked on amphetamines to curb her appetite and barbiturates to help her sleep. The pills were given as casually as candy, a standard practice in the Hollywood system, but for Judy, they would become chains she could never break. Meanwhile, MGM began testing her in short films and musicals. In 1936, she recorded "You Made Me Love You" for Clark Gable's birthday. The performance was supposed to be private, but when executives saw the footage, they realized the immense commercial potential. Soon, Judy was cast in Broadway Melody of 1938, where her rendition of "Dear Mr. Gable" became a sensation. With one song, she captured the world's attention, proving that even without leading lady beauty, her voice alone could command devotion. Still, MGM wasn't satisfied. They micromanaged every aspect of her image. Her teeth were capped, her nose was reshaped with subtle makeup tricks, her hairline altered, her cheeks shaded to make her face appear slimmer. Judy Garland, the actress, was no longer Frances Gum, not even Judy Garland, the singer. She was a studio product, built by committee. Behind the cameras, life was harsher. Judy's mother, Ethel, continued to push relentlessly, often siding with MGM rather than her daughter. When Judy complained about exhaustion, Ethel accused her of ingratitude. "You've got to keep working," she would scold. "This is your life now." Maternal comfort was replaced with managerial coldness. To Judy, her mother became less a protector and more a warden. As the studio invested more in her, Judy was paired with Mickey Rooney, another young MGM contract star. Together, they formed the backbone of a series of Let's Put on a Show musicals that became wildly successful during the late 1930s. Audiences adored their chemistry, though off-screen Judy longed for something more than playing the cheerful sidekick to Rooney's mischievous lead. The studio, however, was relentless. Rooney was marketed as the all-American boy, Judy as the reliable girl who stood by him. She was never allowed to be glamorous, never permitted to be desired. Executives insisted she remain the plain, plucky underdog, forever 15 in the public's imagination. In reality, Judy was growing up fast. Puberty clashed with the studio's demands. She was expected to maintain the figure of a child while performing grueling hours under bright lights. If she gained weight, producers threatened to suspend her. If she looked tired, they increased her pill regimen. If she doubted herself, they reminded her she was replaceable. Every day was a negotiation between survival and performance. Her personal life was equally suffocating. Dating was forbidden, friendships were monitored, and privacy was non-existent. MGM executives even controlled her letters and phone calls. She lived in dormitories with other young starlets, a gilded cage where laughter and tears were overheard by rival hopefuls. The irony was cruel. Hollywood celebrated individuality, yet crushed the individuality of those who created it. By 1938, the studio had found her defining role. Judy was cast as Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz. At 16, she was about to step into a Technicolor dream that would forever bind her legacy. But behind the scenes, the pressure intensified. MGM forced her into a tight corset to flatten her figure, strapped her into gingham dresses designed to make her appear younger, and berated her for every extra pound. On set, she was treated as both a star and a child, mocked for her insecurities while expected to carry one of the most ambitious films in MGM history. Still, Judy delivered. When she sang Over the Rainbow, she did not merely act. She poured out her deepest longing, her unspoken wish to escape the prison of her life. The song was not just Dorothy's dream, it was Judy's. In that moment, she transcended Hollywood's manipulation and revealed the truth of her soul. The world was mesmerized, but for Judy, the role of Dorothy was not only her greatest triumph, it was also the beginning of a lifelong curse. The making of Judy Garland was complete. The studio had their star, the public had their heroine, and Judy had her shackles. She was no longer Frances Ethel Gum, nor even Judy Garland, the vaudeville singer. She was Dorothy forever, forever 16, forever yearning, forever caught between fantasy and reality. And though audiences celebrated the wonder of Oz, Judy was already learning that no rainbow could save her from the storm. The Wizard of Oz was meant to be just another children's film in a long line of MGM spectacles, but for Judy Garland, it became both the crowning jewel of her career and the invisible chain that bound her for life. In 1939, as the world stumbled closer to global war, America desperately needed hope. MGM delivered it through a teenage girl in a gingham dress, holding a small dog and singing of a place where dreams come true. At only 16, Judy was suddenly thrust onto the shoulders of cinematic history. The film's production was grueling from the start. She worked 6 days a week, often 16-hour days. Makeup artists experimented with grotesque prosthetics before deciding on the softer, more natural look that preserved her innocence. Still, they forced her into a corset that compressed her chest and waist to make her appear younger, a humiliating reminder that she was never allowed to grow into womanhood at her own pace. The set itself was a circus of danger. The Wicked Witch's green makeup was toxic, burning Margaret Hamilton's skin. The Tin Man's aluminum dust sent Buddy Ebsen to the hospital. Even Toto, the dog, suffered an on-set accident, but Judy had no time to complain. MGM executives watched her every move. If she gained a pound, the costume department was instructed to let out a seam in shame. If she looked tired, she was handed more amphetamines to keep her awake. Yet despite the cruelty, Judy radiated magic. When she sang Over the Rainbow, it wasn't merely a performance, it was a confession. She carried within her the longing of every small-town dreamer, every child of hardship, every lonely soul who dared to hope there was something beyond the gray. The studio wanted a song of fantasy, but Judy delivered a song of survival. Audiences heard it, they felt it, and in that moment, she became immortal. Film's release in August 1939 coincided with one of the darkest periods in modern history. Hitler invaded Poland days later, and the world braced for war. Against the backdrop of looming violence, Judy's Dorothy became a symbol of innocence worth protecting. Children clutched their parents' hands in theaters as she sang of rainbows. Adults, hardened by the Depression, quietly wept. Dorothy wasn't just a character, She was a collective wish that humanity could still believe in wonder. The critical acclaim was immediate, though the box office was initially modest. It wasn't until re-releases and later television broadcasts in the 1950s that The Wizard of Oz became the cultural cornerstone we know today. But for Judy, the film's success was bittersweet. Dorothy was meant to be a role, but it became an identity. Everywhere she went, she was Dorothy Gale. Strangers demanded she sing the song. Reporters reminded her she would never escape that farm girl in Kansas. The pressure intensified as MGM capitalized on her sudden stardom. She was paired again with Mickey Rooney in hit after hit, reinforcing her image as the wholesome teenager. Judy longed for adult roles, but MGM wouldn't allow it. She was their eternal ingenue, frozen in adolescence, while inside she was maturing into a woman with desires, insecurities, and scars. Her private life began to fracture under the strain. She oscillated between bursts of joy and spirals of despair, the first signs of a depression that would shadow her forever. Pills dulled her pain, but also deepened her dependence. Sleep became a luxury, and her waking hours blurred under the studio's relentless demands. She confided to friends that she felt like a puppet, her strings pulled by executives who cared only about ticket sales. Even as accolades poured in, Judy was painfully aware of the double standard around her. Male actors were allowed to age, to shift into mature roles. Female stars were boxed into types, and Judy's type was the perpetual child. She knew that once she outgrew Dorothy, the studio would discard her. This knowledge haunted her, intensifying her desperation to please. She worked harder, sang longer, and suffered more silently than anyone around her. Ironically, while The Wizard of Oz made her a legend, it also robbed her of freedom. Dorothy's ruby slippers were not a costume piece. They were shackles, locking her into an image that no adult woman could sustain. Judy once quipped bitterly, "I've always taken The Wizard of Oz very seriously. I've always believed it's my life. I won't look any further for meaning." In those words lay the truth. Dorothy's yearning to escape Kansas mirrored Judy, yearning to escape MGM, her mother, and the crushing weight of her identity. As the 1940s began, Judy was no longer a child. She was America's sweetheart, but privately, she was a young woman collapsing under the contradictions of fame. She belonged to a world that adored her innocence but devoured her humanity. Every standing ovation only tightened the noose. Dorothy had given her the world, but at a price she would spend the rest of her life paying. The crown was on her head, but the curse was already in her veins. The crown of the Wizard of Oz weighed heavier than Judy Garland ever admitted. After 1939, she was no longer simply a contract actress at MGM. She was their prized possession, the girl with the golden voice who could break box office records with a single song. Yet beneath the glitter of Hollywood premieres lay a truth so bleak it would define the rest of her life. Judy Garland's existence was not her own. It belonged to the studio, and the studio ran her like a machine. In the 1940s, MGM became both her sanctuary and her prison. Executives scheduled her days down to the minute. She woke before dawn, swallowed a handful of amphetamines to spark her energy, rehearsed until her feet bled, filmed under scorching lights, and collapsed into bed with the help of sleeping pills. Doctors, paid by the studio, monitored her diet with ruthless precision. She was rarely allowed a full meal, warned constantly that weight gain could end her career. Even her water intake was restricted, lest she appear bloated on camera. This cycle of control was disguised as care. To outsiders, MGM was grooming their star for success. To Judy, it felt like imprisonment. She often confided to friends that she was treated as a little horse, paraded, fed chemicals, and forced to perform. The irony was cruel. The very studio that praised her natural talent was the same one stripping her of any natural life. The pill regimen was perhaps the cruelest legacy of MGM's control. Introduced when she was barely a teenager, the pep pills promised energy, confidence, and weight loss. Barbiturates promised rest. The alternating rhythm of uppers and downers created dependency before Judy even understood what addiction was. She was told it was professional necessity, not poison. By the time she reached her 20s, her body was already wired to depend on them. Still, Judy delivered dazzling performances. In Babes in Arms, 1939, and Strike Up the Band, 1940, she cemented her chemistry with Mickey Rooney, the all-American boy. Audiences adored their wholesome, youthful pairing. Off-screen, Judy was aching to break free from those roles. She was no longer a child, but MGM refused to let her grow. She was trapped in the body of a young woman, but forced to play America's eternal teenager. That tension grew unbearable. Judy had natural charm, wit, and sensuality, but she was forbidden from expressing it. Studio executives constantly compared her to glamour queens like Lana Turner, reminding her she was not beautiful enough, not thin enough, not desirable enough to be a true leading lady. Louis B. Mayer himself cruelly referred to her as "my little hunchback," mocking her insecurities. Such taunts cut deeply. Every insult reinforced her belief that she was unworthy of love without performance. By the mid-1940s, Judy's popularity soared. Films like Meet Me in St. Louis, 1944, showcased her at her radiant best. Her rendition of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas became an anthem of wartime longing, resonating with families separated by battlefields. For audiences, Judy was both comfort and escape. For Judy herself, the performance was laced with melancholy. Off-camera, she battled exhaustion, collapsing from overwork more than once. Doctors warned MGM, but production never slowed. The pressure also infected her relationships. At 19, Judy married bandleader David Rose, a decision driven more by her desperate search for independence than love. The marriage faltered almost instantly. Rose's career conflicted with hers, and Judy was too entangled with MGM to sustain a private life. The union ended in divorce by 1944, deepening Judy's sense of failure. Each broken relationship added to her conviction that she was unlovable, except as a performer. Her dependence on pills worsened. What began as forced consumption became self-administered necessity. Without stimulants, she couldn't function. Without sedatives, she couldn't sleep. The addiction created violent mood swings and paranoia, but MGM executives dismissed her struggles as weakness. "She's temperamental," they whispered, using her exhaustion as proof she was difficult rather than broken. The tragedy was that Judy's greatest triumphs coincided with her deepest suffering. Meet Me in St. Louis was both a career highlight and a personal low. On screen, she glowed with joy, singing the trolley song with uncontainable energy. Off-screen, she felt like a fraud. The joy was manufactured, the exhaustion real. Audiences saw her as the radiant girl next door. Judy saw herself as a hollow shell, patched together with pills and willpower. As the 1940s wore on, the burden grew unbearable. MGM's control over her body, her mind, and her identity stripped Judy of any sense of autonomy. She once remarked bitterly, "They took my childhood, they took my youth, and gave me nothing in return." Yet she continued performing, trapped by the paradox of fame, adored by millions, but powerless in her own life. By the end of the decade, the cracks were undeniable. Judy began missing filming days, unable to drag herself from bed. Directors fumed, co-stars complained, and MGM grew impatient. Instead of compassion, the studio applied more pressure. Judy Garland, the perfect girl next door, was no longer perfect enough. The machine that built her was now preparing to discard her. The pills, the pressure, the relentless pursuit of perfection, this was the invisible script Judy followed, day after punishing day. And though the applause never faltered, inside, she was already unraveling. By the late 1940s, Judy Garland was no longer the fresh-faced teenager who sang of rainbows. She was a woman in her mid-20s, exhausted, frayed, and breaking under the very system that had created her. MGM had made her one of the brightest stars in Hollywood, but at a devastating cost. The glamorous premieres and applause masked a brutal reality. Her self-worth had been eroded, her body ravaged by pills, and her mind warped by years of manipulation. The studio still demanded she remain their darling. Judy was cast in a string of musicals: Ziegfeld Girl, 1941, For Me and My Gal, 1942, and later The Harvey Girls, 1946. On screen, she sparkled with warmth and vitality. She smiled, she sang, she danced, and audiences saw only joy. But behind the camera, she was unraveling. To maintain the illusion of endless energy, she relied on the cocktail of stimulants and sedatives MGM had introduced to her as a teenager. Each pill promised relief, but delivered dependency. Her relationships became casualties of the pressure. After her divorce from David Rose, Judy fell into another marriage in 1945 with director Vincent Minnelli, a man who admired her artistry but struggled to navigate her volatility. Their union produced her first child, Lisa, in 1946. The birth should have been a moment of peace, but Judy's career left her no time for recovery. Within months, she was back at MGM, forced to project vitality while internally she was falling apart. Her body bore the marks of relentless work. Years of restricted diets and chemical manipulation had left her frail. She fainted on set, missed call times, and lashed out under stress. Gossip columnists began reporting on her unreliability, planting seeds that her reputation was collapsing. Rather than shielding her, MGM turned ruthless. They reminded her of her obligations, docked her pay when she faltered, and dangled termination over her head. In Hollywood, no one was indispensable, not even Judy Garland. Still, she delivered unforgettable performances. Meet Me in St. Louis, 1944, had been her crowning achievement of the decade, directed by her husband. The film gave audiences the tender ballad, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, which became an anthem during World War II. Soldiers overseas clung to her voice as a lifeline. To the public, she was a symbol of comfort. To Judy, she was barely surviving, haunted by the knowledge that the girl next door image she projected bore no resemblance to her real self. The more she struggled, the harsher the punishment became. By 1947, the cracks could no longer be ignored. Judy suffered a nervous breakdown, halting filming on The Pirate 1948. MGM, instead of offering care, pressured her back to work. The film was a commercial failure, amplifying whispers that Garland was a liability. Soon after, she attempted suicide, an act that revealed just how cornered she felt. It was a cry for help in an industry that had no patience for weakness. Her marriage to Minnelli began to disintegrate. He admired her talent, but recoiled from the chaos of her private life. Rumors about his sexuality complicated matters further, and Judy, already plagued by insecurity, felt increasingly abandoned. Lisa was her only anchor, but even motherhood could not rescue her from the whirlpool of addiction, exhaustion, and despair. In 1949, Judy was fired from the production of Annie Get Your Gun after missing too many days of filming. The humiliation was devastating. For a star who had given MGM her youth, the betrayal cut deep. She felt discarded, used, and forgotten. Her depression intensified. That same year, she was institutionalized, briefly stepping away from the public eye to seek rest. But Hollywood never rests. The machine moved on, and Judy struggled to reclaim her place. The irony was cruel. MGM had built Judy Garland into an icon, yet it was the very process of building her that destroyed her. The studio demanded perfection, but gave her only pills and pressure to achieve it. They praised her brilliance while reminding her daily of her flaws. They exploited her talent, but denied her humanity. The cost of her stardom was not merely her health, it was her very sense of self. Yet Judy was not finished. In her most broken state, she still carried a resilience that refused to vanish. The very voice that once sang of rainbows would become her weapon of survival. Though the 1940s ended with her career in tatters and her reputation in question, a new chapter was waiting. Hollywood had discarded her, but Judy Garland was too powerful, too luminous, to be erased so easily. The cost of stardom had left her scarred, but it also forged her into something stronger. A woman who would soon learn to command not just a film set, but concert halls, nightclubs, and eventually, the world. The curtain had barely closed on the 1940s when Judy Garland's personal life became just as dramatic and chaotic as any film she had ever starred in. The world adored her as Dorothy and Esther, as the girl next door who sang of rainbows and trolley rides, but in private she was desperate, lonely, and longing for stability that never seemed to arrive. Fame had given her money, applause, and recognition, yet it had stolen the ordinary comforts of home, trust, and love. Her first marriage to David Rose had been a short-lived escape. Her second, to Vincent Minnelli, had given her Lisa, but it collapsed under the combined weight of her insecurities and his secret life. Now, as the 1950s dawned, Judy searched for solace in places that only deepened her wounds. In 1952, she married Sid Luft, a man who would play both savior and tormentor in her story. Luft was a former test pilot and gambler, tough enough to stand up to Judy's volatility and savvy enough to recognize her untapped potential beyond MGM. He became her manager, the person who believed she could reinvent herself not as a movie star chained to a studio, but as an independent performer commanding stages around the world. Their marriage was fiery from the start. Luft was protective and ambitious, but also domineering, prone to explosive arguments that left Judy shaken. Their relationship became a storm of passion, love, jealousy, and resentment. Judy, always yearning for affection, clung to him despite the turbulence. Together, they had 2 children, Lorna in 1952 and Joey in 1955. For a fleeting moment, Judy believed she had found the family stability she had craved since childhood. But the ghosts of her past could not be silenced. Her dependence on pills followed her everywhere, a habit now ingrained in her body and psyche. She tried to quit, tried to reset her life, but each attempt was undone by exhaustion, by the relentless demand to perform, and by the ever-present fear of losing everything. Luft often doubled as her enabler, sourcing medication when she needed it, rationalizing that her career depended on it. Love and addiction became indistinguishable. Even so, Luft was instrumental in reviving Judy's career. With MGM behind her and then against her, she had been branded unreliable. Studios whispered that she was finished, but Luft saw an opportunity to take Judy where she had always belonged, the stage. In smoky clubs, concert halls, and eventually the grandest theaters in the world, Judy would be reborn. The love life of Judy Garland was as chaotic as her career. She longed for tenderness, yet chose men who mirrored her own volatility. Rose was gentle but distant, Manelli brilliant but absent, and Luft strong but harsh. Each marriage began with promise and ended in disillusion. Yet Judy could not stop searching, because for her, love was not a luxury, it was the one thing she believed could save her. Friends often remarked that Judy never felt safe unless she was in the arms of someone. Alone, her insecurities consumed her. Surrounded by people, she could perform. But in relationships, she exposed her rawest need. The child abandoned to ambition, the girl mocked by executives, the woman who had never once believed she was beautiful enough, good enough, or worthy enough. The cycle was tragic. When Judy was adored, she shone. When she felt betrayed, she collapsed. Love became a seesaw, and her children often witnessed the chaos firsthand. Lisa, precocious and observant, learned early how to care for her mother, while Lorna and Joey would grow up in an atmosphere of devotion and dysfunction, never entirely shielded from their mother's struggles. Still, Judy's longing for love gave her resilience. Every failed marriage broke her, but each also gave her reason to rise again. Rose had given her independence, Manelli had given her laser, and Luft, for all his faults, gave her the greatest gift of her later career, a second act. Her personal life was a carousel of husbands, arguments, reconciliations, and heartbreak, but it was never devoid of passion. Judy Garland, who had been denied ordinary love as a child, spent her adulthood chasing extraordinary love, even when it destroyed her. And in that pursuit, she laid the foundation for the greatest reinvention of her career, the moment when Judy Garland would stop being Dorothy and become, for the first time, Judy Garland the legend. The world thought Judy Garland's best days were behind her. By the early 1950s, MGM had dropped her, critics dismissed her as unreliable, and columnists speculated she would vanish into the same oblivion that had swallowed so many child stars. But Sid Luft had another vision. He saw that Judy, stripped of studio trappings, still had the most powerful instrument in entertainment, her voice. It was raw, emotional, unlike anything on stage or screen. He believed audiences would pay not for perfection, but for the naked honesty she could pour into a song. And so began one of the greatest comebacks in show business history. In 1951, Luft arranged for Judy to appear at the London Palladium. The idea was risky, her reputation for no-shows and breakdowns preceded her. Yet when she walked out on that stage, frail but radiant in sequins, the crowd erupted. Judy Garland, once written off as a casualty of Hollywood's cruelty, delivered a performance so electric that the London press declared her a phenomenon reborn. It was as if the years of torment had distilled into something deeper, something audiences could feel in every note. The momentum carried across the Atlantic. Later that year, Judy booked a run at New York's Palace Theater, a venue she had dreamed of conquering. For 3 months, night after night, she performed to packed houses, earning standing ovations that stretched into minutes. Critics called it the greatest comeback since Lazarus. The Palace engagement restored her reputation, revived her finances, and cemented her as more than Dorothy. She was now the reigning queen of live entertainment. Sid Luft managed the bookings, negotiated the contracts, and kept her working. The strategy was simple. Judy was too unpredictable for films, but on stage she could harness her volatility into art. Concert tour across the United States and Europe followed, transforming her into a global attraction. Her singing voice, tinged with a vulnerability that no studio orchestra could polish away, became the anthem of every person who had ever been broken and fought to rise again. Yet even triumph carried shadows. Judy's reliance on pills did not disappear. She required stimulants to power through rehearsals, sleeping pills to rest after the adrenaline, and often alcohol to numb the anxiety between shows. Seed Luft shielded her as best he could, but the cycle was endless. Doctors prescribed, managers justified, and Judy obeyed, even as her body protested. The comeback reached its zenith in 1954 when Luft secured Judy the role of a lifetime. A Star is Born. Produced independently and released by Warner Bros., the film was Judy's chance to re-establish herself as a dramatic actress after years away from the screen. Her portrayal of Esther Blodgett, a singer whose career rises as her husband's falls, was painfully autobiographical. Judy poured every ounce of her experience into the role, her yearning, her heartbreak, her unquenchable hunger for love and applause. When A Star is Born premiered, critics hailed it as a masterpiece. The New York Times called her performance the greatest dramatic singing act in history. Awards buzz swirled, and many expected Judy to finally claim the Oscar that had eluded her since The Wizard of Oz. But in one of Hollywood's most infamous nights, she lost the Academy Award to Grace Kelly. The disappointment crushed her. She joked about it in public, but in private, she wept. Seed Luft later recalled that Judy had pinned so many of her hopes for legitimacy on that golden statue, and when it slipped away, it reopened every scar MGM had left behind. Still, Judy pressed forward. Concert tour became her lifeblood. In 1956, she recorded Judy, her first studio album in a decade, followed by live recordings that captured the fervor of her shows. She had transformed from a screen ingenue into a cabaret goddess, capable of holding thousands of people in thrall with just a spotlight and a microphone. The irony was sharp. Judy Garland, who had been told by MGM executives that she wasn't beautiful enough, glamorous enough, or dependable enough, was now the most celebrated live performer of her era. Her vulnerability had become her power. But every ovation came at a cost. The endless schedule drained her body, the pills consumed her health, and the constant tension in her marriage to Seed Luft frayed what stability she had left. They fought as often as they embraced, their love story becoming another battlefield. She leaned on him for survival, yet resented the control he exerted over her career. By the late 1950s, Judy Garland had proven the world wrong. She was not a faded starlet, but a living legend. Still, the fragile balance between triumph and collapse could not hold forever. She had survived MGM's cruelty, rebuilt her career, and conquered the stage, but the storm inside her had never subsided. And as the 1960s approached, the same relentless intensity that fueled her greatest performances would begin to turn against her once again. By the dawn of the 1960s, Judy Garland stood as both a living miracle and a cautionary tale. She had defied every obituary written in gossip columns throughout the 1950s, risen from near obscurity, and reinvented herself as a queen of the concert stage. Yet every triumphant headline carried a darker undertone. Could Judy survive her own success? Her marriage to Seed Luft remained both her anchor and her torment. He was still her manager, pushing her onto stages that brought financial windfalls and thunderous applause. But behind closed doors, their battles grew louder. Luft's gambling drained their earnings, creditors hounded them, and Judy's mounting debts became impossible to ignore. The same man who had orchestrated her comeback was also dragging her into lawsuits, repossessions, and public embarrassments. Their passionate bond turned toxic, oscillating between fiery affection and vicious arguments that left bruises, emotional and physical alike. Professionally, however, Judy's momentum surged. She signed a deal with Capitol Records in 1955, and over the next decade recorded some of the most definitive vocal albums of her career. Alone, Judy in Love, and The Letter, each one imbued with a depth only life's struggles could teach. Her voice had changed, it was huskier, edged with wear, but that rawness became her strength. Listeners felt as though Judy wasn't simply singing to them, she was bleeding her truth into their ears. Then came the night that would forever define Judy Garland as a stage phenomenon. April 23, 1961, at Carnegie Hall. The concert, recorded live, was a spectacle of endurance, artistry, and sheer human willpower. Fans packed the hall, celebrities filled the front rows, and Judy, fragile yet radiant, delivered a performance that critics would later call the greatest night in show business history. For over 2 hours, she sang her past, her pain, and her hope, each song punctuated by ovations so long they seemed endless. The recording, Judy at Carnegie Hall, became a cultural landmark. It topped the charts, won 4 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, and turned Judy into the first woman to achieve such a feat. For a brief moment, her career felt unstoppable. The public embraced her not as a child star, not even as an actress, but as a once-in-a-century interpreter of song. Yet even as she basked in Carnegie's triumph, the foundation beneath her life was crumbling. Financial mismanagement left her broke, despite sold-out tour. The IRS pursued her relentlessly, seizing homes and cars. Her dependence on prescription drugs deepened, making her moods increasingly volatile. Concert promoters adored the box office receipts she brought in, but dreaded her reputation for cancellations, no-shows, or on-stage collapses. Judy Garland was a paradox, the greatest performer alive and the least reliable one to book. Her marriage to Seed Luft reached its breaking point in 1965. Years of abuse and betrayal had left Judy emotionally shredded. The divorce was bitter, drawn out, and costly. It marked the end of the man who had orchestrated her second act, but also the end of the family unit she had desperately wanted to preserve for her children. Alone once again, Judy searched for solace in new relationships, but none could mend the scars left by Luft. Television briefly offered her a new avenue. In 1963, CBS launched The Judy Garland Show, a weekly variety program that seemed destined for success. But the network mishandled it, shifting formats and time slots, unsure whether to present Judy as glamorous diva or girl next door. Behind the scenes, producers clashed with her over-creative direction, while Judy herself struggled with the grueling schedule and her worsening health. The show was cancelled after a single season, despite critical acclaim and Emmy nominations. Another promise dashed, another chapter closed too soon. Through it all, Judy's resilience never ceased to astonish. She could be bankrupt one day, hospitalized the next, yet somehow appear under spotlight a week later, dazzling crowds as though nothing had happened. Her very fragility became part of the allure. Audiences understood they weren't watching perfection, they were watching survival. Each performance felt like a fight against the forces trying to consume her, and they rooted for her with fervor unmatched in entertainment. By the mid-1960s, Judy Garland was simultaneously at her highest and lowest. Carnegie Hall had proven her immortality as an artist, but her personal life spiraled further out of control. Financial ruin shadowed her, pills gnawed away at her health, marriages crumbled, and yet time and again she stepped onto the stage, a battered but unbroken figure, singing as if the world depended on it. The paradox of Judy Garland was now undeniable. She was both legend and tragedy in the making, adored by millions yet perpetually on the edge of collapse. The applause was deafening, but when the curtain fell, the silence was unbearable, and that silence was closing in more relentlessly than ever before. The late 1960s were a crucible for Judy Garland, a time when her genius and her fragility collided in full view of the world. Carnegie Hall had secured her immortality as a live performer, yet the decade that followed revealed how fame, money, and relentless pressure could grind even the strongest spirit into dust. Judy had given everything to her audiences, but her personal life was now unraveling faster than she could repair it. After divorcing Seed Luft in 1965, Judy's life became a carousel of unstable romances and hurried marriages. She was searching, as always, for someone to anchor her, to protect her from the storm inside. In 1965, she married actor Mark Herron, a union that lasted only 5 months. Friends whispered that the relationship was abusive, explosive, and doomed from the start. Judy, however, kept repeating the same pattern, chasing tenderness, accepting chaos, and sacrificing herself in the name of love. Meanwhile, her finances reached catastrophic levels. The IRS seized her Hollywood home, and debts mounted into the hundreds of thousands. Judy, once a box office queen, was now scrambling to pay bills, often relying on advances from promoters who knew she couldn't resist another chance to perform. Yet with every contract signed, the risks grew greater. Promoters feared cancellations. Venues worried about her reliability. Fans adored her, but her unpredictability became infamous. Still, when she did show up, no one on earth could match her. She performed in Las Vegas, London, and on countless stages across America. In 1967, at Manhattan's Palace Theatre, she returned once more to the stage that had saved her career 16 years earlier. The reception was thunderous. The audiences came not just to hear her sing, but to witness her endure. They applauded her resilience as much as her music, aware that every appearance could be her last. But behind the curtain, her body was failing. Years of uppers, downers, and alcohol had taken their toll. Judy's weight fluctuated wildly, her energy unpredictable. She was hospitalized frequently for exhaustion, hepatitis, and nervous breakdowns. The woman who once symbolized youthful vitality now embodied survival through suffering. Her relationship with her children grew strained, though never without love. Lisa, now a rising star in her own right, struggled with the burden of caring for her mother while forging her own path. Lorna and Joey, still young, lived through their mother's chaotic tour, watching her cycle between radiant triumph and devastating collapse. Judy adored them fiercely, but the instability of her life made consistent motherhood almost impossible. In 1968, another attempt at stability arrived when she married her fifth husband, Mickey Deans, a nightclub manager 30 years her junior. He presented himself as her rescuer, the man who would finally bring order to the chaos. Yet Deans had his own flaws, controlling, opportunistic, and ill-equipped to manage a woman of Judy's volatility. Still, Judy, weary and desperate for protection, clung to him as her last chance at companionship. Her final years were marked by an almost desperate resilience. Even when her health faltered, she took on grueling concert schedules. In 1968, she embarked on a world tour, performing in Australia and across Europe. Some shows were disasters, arriving late, forgetting lyrics, slurring through songs, but others were transcendent, reminders of the incandescent power that still lived inside her. Audiences forgave everything. They weren't there for polish, they were there for Judy. Financial ruin, though, never relented. She once confided to friends that she could not even pay for groceries. Her bank accounts were drained, her properties gone, her name tied up in endless lawsuits. In one of her last interviews, she quipped with tragic honesty, "I've been broke my whole life, but I've always had a good time." Her legend, however, only grew. Younger generations discovered her films on television, The Wizard of Oz replaying annually and cementing her as an eternal icon. Meanwhile, the gay community, facing its own battles for survival and dignity, embraced Judy as a symbol of resilience. Her vulnerability, her endurance, her refusal to surrender, even when battered by life, all resonated deeply. Some historians would later point to the timing of her death, just days before the Stonewall riots of 1969, as a catalyst for a new movement of resistance. But Judy herself never lived to see her myth crystallize. She was still fighting, still searching, still hoping that one more performance might solve the problems that shadowed her. Her story was moving toward its final act, and though she was only in her 40s, she had lived 1,000 lifetimes of triumph and tragedy. In 1969, with her health depleted, her finances wrecked, and her heart still yearning for peace, Judy Garland moved to London with Mickey Deans. It was there, in the quiet of a rented house, that the final chapter of her life would unfold, a chapter as haunting as it was inevitable. London, 1969. Judy Garland arrived in the city she had once conquered with roaring ovations at the Palladium, but this time her presence carried a different weight. She was 47 years old, though her body bore the exhaustion of someone twice that age. She had lived through the golden age of Hollywood, survived the collapse of the studio system, reinvented herself on the concert stage, and endured 5 marriages. Now she was adrift, battered by illness, debt, and despair, yet still clinging to the only constant she had ever known, the spotlight. Her marriage to Mickey Deans, her 5th and final husband, was not a fairy tale. Deans was charming, youthful, and attentive in public, but critics of the relationship whispered that he was more opportunist than protector. He had met Judy in 1966 when he delivered pills to her hotel room, an ominous beginning that foretold their future. By the time they wed in March 1969, Judy was frail, financially destitute, and in desperate need of stability. Deans promised her comfort, yet what followed was a blur of chaos. Judy's health was deteriorating rapidly. Decades of prescribed stimulants and sedatives had ravaged her body. Her liver was damaged, her weight fluctuated wildly, and her energy was unpredictable. Yet, even in this fragile state, she refused to stop performing. In early 1969, she embarked on a short series of concerts at London's Talk of the Town nightclub. The shows were erratic. Some nights she soared with brilliance, other nights she faltered, forgetting lyrics, staggering through numbers, or arriving late to the stage. Still, the audience forgave her. They didn't come for perfection. They came to witness Judy Garland, the survivor, standing before them despite everything. The press, however, was merciless. Tabloid reporters mocked her appearances, describing her as a sad shadow of her former self. Photos splashed across newspapers showed her gaunt frame, her haunted eyes. For Judy, who had spent a lifetime being criticized for her looks, the cruelty was unbearable. Yet she smiled for cameras, laughed at interviews, and continued to give pieces of herself on stage, as though applause might still save her. Behind the scenes, reality was grim. She was broke, owing thousands to creditors. Friends described her living conditions in London as modest, sometimes even squalid. She once quipped that she had lived like a queen and like a pauper, and in 1969, the pauper phase was all too real. Her earnings from concerts were swallowed by debts, management disputes, and years of unpaid taxes. For a woman who had generated millions for MGM and concert promoters, she now often couldn't afford basic comforts. Still, Judy carried on. She had survived every setback before, and she believed she could rise again. But her body was telling another story. Years of pills had damaged her tolerance and judgment. Doctors who once catered to studio demands had left her dependent on medications she could no longer live without. Friends noticed how frail she had become, her skin pale, her movements sluggish. Yet her spirit, at least outwardly, remained defiant. In June of 1969, Judy celebrated her 47th birthday quietly in London. Just 12 days later, tragedy struck. On the morning of June 22, Mickey Deans found her lifeless in their rented house in Chelsea. The coroner ruled it an accidental overdose of barbiturates. She had taken more than her body could endure. The official report emphasized it was not suicide. There was no note, no plan, but rather the tragic culmination of years of dependency. News of her death shocked the world. Fans wept openly, newspapers ran special editions, and Hollywood stars paid tribute to the woman who had shaped an era. She was only 47, yet had lived through more turmoil and triumph than most could imagine. The girl who had followed the yellow brick road was gone, leaving behind a legacy both dazzling and devastating. In New York, thousands lined the streets outside Frank E. Campbell Funeral Chapel to glimpse her casket. Some estimates say more than 20,000 mourners attended, standing for hours in the summer heat just to say goodbye. Her funeral was attended by family, friends, and the countless admirers who felt that Judy's voice had spoken directly to their own wounds. Her passing came just days before the Stonewall uprising in Greenwich Village, and some have long linked the grief in the gay community over Judy's death to the spark of defiance that ignited the movement. Whether coincidence or catalyst, her legacy as an icon of resilience was cemented in that moment, her memory fueling not just nostalgia, but revolution. Judy Garland's life ended in quiet tragedy, far from the glitter of Hollywood or the thunder of Carnegie Hall. But her voice, her pain, and her brilliance continued to echo, refusing to fade. In the silence left behind, the world began to realize that it had not just lost a star. It had lost a once-in-a-lifetime soul who had carried both the joy and sorrow of an entire generation in every trembling note she sang. The days following Judy Garland's death were unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. For decades, her life had been a spectacle: stage lights, tabloid headlines, red carpets, and scandals, but now the spectacle was grief. News bulletins interrupted broadcasts to confirm that Dorothy Gale, Esther Blodgett, the girl on the trolley, the queen of Carnegie Hall, was gone at only 47. The world struggled to process the paradox. She had been immortal on screen, yet tragically mortal in life. In New York, her body was returned for the funeral. At the Frank E. Campbell Funeral Chapel, Where icons like Rudolph Valentino and Billie Holiday had been mourned, Judy's casket rested beneath a cascade of flowers. Lines of fans stretched for blocks, waiting hours to glimpse her, some singing fragments of Somewhere Over the Rainbow as tears ran down their cheeks. Newspapers estimated more than 20,000 mourners came, each carrying their own memory of the girl who had seemed to carry their dreams on her shoulders. Her children stood shattered at the service. Liza Minnelli, then 23 and on the cusp of her own stardom, tried to hold herself with composure, yet her grief was written on her face. Lorna and Joey, still teenagers, struggled to comprehend the loss of the mother who had been both their greatest source of love and their most unpredictable storm. Hollywood stars filled the pews, paying tribute with hushed reverence, among them James Mason, who delivered a eulogy that cut through the weight of the moment. Judy's great gift was that she could wring tears out of hearts of stone. She gave so much, so generously, that there was little left for her to give herself. It was a sentence that distilled her tragedy, a woman who poured her soul into her art until there was nothing left for her own survival. The funeral itself was intimate compared to the public outpouring outside. There were no grand Hollywood theatrics, only the quiet recognition that Judy Garland had given more of herself than anyone had the right to ask. When the service concluded, her body was interred at Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale, New York. Decades later, in 2017, her remains would be moved to Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, finally returning her to the city that had created and destroyed her. In the aftermath, Judy's death became more than a moment of mourning. It became a cultural turning point. Within days, the Stonewall riots erupted in Greenwich Village. Though historians debate the extent to which Judy's passing influenced the uprising, many who had gathered at the Stonewall in that week were gay men devastated by her death, finding in her voice a mirror of their own struggles. Whether coincidence or catalyst, Judy's image became intertwined with the birth of the modern LGBTQ+ rights movement. To this community, she wasn't just a performer, she was a symbol of survival in the face of unrelenting hardship. Financially, her death exposed the bleak reality of her life. Despite decades of films, albums, and concerts, she died nearly penniless, with debts outweighing her assets. Court battles over royalties and estates dragged on for years, leaving her children to sort through the wreckage of contracts that had exploited her genius while discarding her humanity. The cruel irony was undeniable. Judy Garland, who had generated millions for MGM and for promoters worldwide, could not leave financial security for her own family. And yet her legacy could not be reduced to numbers or bank ledgers. Her recordings flew off the shelves after her death, her films were replayed on television to soaring ratings, and her image was immortalized in magazines, posters, and retrospectives. The girl who had once been deemed not pretty enough to be a star was now enshrined as one of the greatest performers of all time. The press, which had often tormented her during her life, now canonized her. Headlines described her as the legend who burned too bright, the star who couldn't stop giving, and the greatest voice of the century. It was bitter comfort to those who had watched her suffer under those same papers' cruelty only months earlier. But history has a way of sanctifying its martyrs, and Judy had become one. Her death left an unfillable void in entertainment. No one could replicate her mix of fragility and strength, of humor and heartbreak, of glamour and devastation. She had carried her pain into her art, and in doing so, made millions of strangers feel less alone. That was the essence of Judy Garland. She did not sing to impress, she sang to survive, and in that survival, she gave her audiences the courage to endure their own battles. As the 1970s began, Judy's shadow loomed large over Hollywood and beyond. Liza Minnelli stepped into her own dazzling career, winning an Oscar for Cabaret and carrying forward the artistry she had inherited. Lorna and Joey, too, pursued music and acting, though always with the weight of being Garland's children. But for the world, Judy Garland was frozen in time. The girl in the gingham dress, the woman bathed in Carnegie's spotlight, the tragic star whose voice could still break hearts decades after it had fallen silent. Her funeral had ended. The casket was closed. Yet in every living room where The Wizard of Oz played, in every record store where her voice was sold, Judy Garland was still alive, still asking the world to believe in rainbows. The story of Judy Garland did not end with her funeral. If anything, her absence only magnified her presence. In the years after 1969, Judy's myth expanded, fed by nostalgia, scholarship, and the endless replay of her films and recordings. She had been a woman, flawed and fragile, but now she became something larger, a legend whose tragedy made her immortal. Television played a central role in cementing her legacy. Each year, networks broadcast The Wizard of Oz, turning the film into a cultural ritual for new generations. Children who had never lived during Judy's lifetime fell in love with Dorothy Gale, the girl who longed for somewhere over the rainbow. Parents watched alongside them, remembering their own childhoods and recognizing that Judy's voice still held the same magic decades later. What had once been a single studio release in 1939 became, through television, a timeless touchstone. Judy Garland was no longer just a star of the past. She was part of the fabric of American family life. Her recordings also gained renewed recognition. The Judy at Carnegie Hall album, already legendary, was rediscovered by younger audiences and critics who hailed it as a definitive live recording. Her Capitol albums were reissued, her outtakes catalogued, her unreleased songs packaged into anthologies. Each release reinforced the idea that Judy had not been simply a star, but an artist of rare and enduring power. For the LGBTQ+ community, Judy's legacy carried a special resonance. Her death in June 1969 had coincided with the Stonewall riots, and whether by coincidence or symbolic timing, Judy became a patron saint of resilience. Drag performers mimicked her with reverence, bars played her records as anthems, and the phrase, "friend of Dorothy," emerged as a coded way for gay men to identify each other in an era of secrecy. Judy had always embodied the tension of living authentically while enduring social judgment. Her vulnerability, her fight for survival, and her refusal to surrender made her an icon of defiance as well as despair. Hollywood, too, began the slow process of reckoning with what had been done to her. Former studio insiders admitted the cruelty of MGM's treatment, the diet pills, the grueling schedules, the constant pressure. Books and biographies revealed the systemic abuse that had shaped Judy's addictions and insecurities. What had once been dismissed as her personal weakness came to be understood as the result of industrial exploitation. Judy Garland's tragedy was not just personal, it was institutional, a symbol of Hollywood's merciless machinery. Her children, meanwhile, carried her torch. Liza Minnelli stepped boldly into the spotlight, her Oscar-winning role in Cabaret proving that Judy's brilliance had not died with her. Liza's flamboyance, her vulnerability, and her unshakable voice all echoed her mother, yet she carved out her own identity as an artist. Lorna Luft pursued a career in singing and acting, and later dedicated herself to preserving Judy's legacy with memoirs and concerts. Joey Luft, though less public, remained protective of his mother's memory. For all three, Judy was not just a myth, but a mother difficult, unpredictable, loving, and unforgettable. The fascination with Judy Garland grew into a cultural industry of its own. Documentaries, stage plays, and later biopics tried to capture her essence. In 2001, the television miniseries Life with Judy Garland, Me and My Shadows, starring Judy Davis, offered one of the most acclaimed portrayals of her tumultuous journey. In 2019, Renee Zellweger's performance in Judy earned her an Academy Award, once again bringing Judy's final years into the spotlight. Each retelling drew new audiences, each reminder proving that Judy's story still resonated across decades. But perhaps the greatest tribute to Judy Garland lies not in dramatizations, but in the way her songs remain alive. When people listen to Over the Rainbow, they hear not just a ballad from a film, but a plea, a dream, an aching hope that still speaks to anyone who has ever longed for something better. Her recordings at Carnegie Hall still pulse with energy, still sound as if Judy is right there, trembling, laughing, crying with her audience. She is gone, yet still vividly present. In the end, Judy Garland's tragedy was also her triumph. She had been broken by Hollywood, yet had given it some of its most enduring treasures. She had been mocked, discarded, and doubted, yet proved time and again that her voice and spirit could not be silenced. She had lived in chaos, but left behind beauty. By the mid-1970s and beyond, Judy was no longer seen merely as a fallen star, but as a cultural touchstone, a symbol of both the dangers and the transcendence of fame. She was a cautionary tale of exploitation and addiction, but also a beacon of resilience, reminding the world that even the most fragile voices can echo the loudest across time. And so, long after the applause had faded, Judy Garland remained exactly what she had always been: unforgettable. Judy Garland's memory never faded, but it deepened with each decade. By the 1980s, her legacy had grown beyond nostalgia into a phenomenon of scholarship, fandom, and collective myth-making. What had begun as grief over a fallen star evolved into a global conversation about talent, abuse, resilience, and the price of being extraordinary. Judy's life was no longer just a sad Hollywood story. It was a mirror held up to an entire century's way of consuming its artists. Archivists and collectors unearthed treasures from MGM's vaults, alternate takes of The Wizard of Oz, forgotten recordings, and home movies that gave the public a glimpse of Judy beyond the spotlight. Every rediscovery fed the hunger to understand her. Film festivals began hosting retrospectives of her work, where young audiences who had never seen her in her lifetime now sat in awe at her luminous screen presence. At a time when Hollywood was reinventing itself with new stars and blockbuster formulas, Judy's films proved timeless. Biographies multiplied, each attempting to unlock her mystery. Gerald Clark's Get Happy offered one of the most definitive accounts of her life, balancing her personal demons with the cultural forces that shaped her. Later works would amplify this narrative, painting Judy as a woman destroyed not by weakness, but by systemic pressures and betrayals. Scholars analyzed her through lenses of gender, sexuality, and celebrity culture, turning her story into a case study of both oppression and endurance. Meanwhile, Judy's fan culture reached levels few stars could match. Collectors swapped rare recordings on cassette, traded memorabilia, and organized fan clubs that treated her not simply as a performer, but as a saint of survival. Gay bars around the world still played her records, and performers invoked her name as shorthand for glamour and heartbreak. To be a friend of Dorothy was to claim Judy as both an ally and a symbol of hope in a world that still marginalized queer lives. The music industry, too, leaned into Judy's afterlife. Her Carnegie Hall recording was reissued multiple times, each release climbing the charts once more. Record producers packaged unreleased studio sessions, her radio appearances, and even amateur recordings into box sets that sold briskly. Judy's voice, whether in pristine studio quality or scratchy live bootlegs, remained electrifying. Few artists of her era retained such an aura in the audio age of CDs and later digital streaming, but Judy did, because her voice carried something unrepeatable: truth, trembling, and fierce. Her influence on other performers was unmistakable. Liza Minnelli's Cabaret had already proven that Judy's spirit had not died with her, and by the 1980s, Liza was performing tributes that connected mother and daughter across time. Barbra Streisand openly cited Judy as a gidding star, one of the only singers she considered a true rival in expressiveness. Lady Gaga, decades later, would echo Judy's raw theatricality in her own performances, often weaving Judy's songs into her set lists. To channel Garland was not imitation, it was homage to the impossible. Hollywood itself began to wrestle with Judy's memory. The era of the child star system had changed, yet the parallels were hard to ignore. Young performers like Brooke Shields and Drew Barrymore faced the same pressures Judy had endured half a century earlier. Reporters often invoked Judy as a cautionary reference, a reminder of what could happen when fame outpaced childhood. In this way, Judy became a cultural compass, her tragedy ensuring that the industry could not entirely ignore the scars it left behind. Beyond the industry, Judy's home country honored her belatedly. In 1997, a U.S. postage stamp was issued in her image, immortalizing Dorothy Gale and acknowledging Judy's role as an enduring national icon. Tributes were staged worldwide, from orchestral concerts to museum exhibitions. Each tribute was not simply an act of remembrance, but of reclamation. The world was taking Judy back from the clutches of scandal and recentering her as an artist of rare genius. Yet even in celebration, Judy's story remained tinged with melancholy. Every rediscovery reminded fans of what had been stolen from her: her health, her peace, her years. Critics and cultural historians framed her as a modern Greek tragedy, a woman of divine gift, undone by the very gods of her industry. This narrative gave Judy's story the weight of myth, turning her into something larger than life, yet it also obscured the tenderness of the woman herself, the mother who sang lullabies, the friend who cracked jokes, the fighter who never gave up until the very end. In the 1990s and early 2000s, her children carried this balance. Liza Minnelli endured her own struggles but kept Judy's songs alive in her concerts. Lorna Luft performed tribute shows, ensuring her mother's story was told in her own words rather than through gossip. Joey Luft, quieter, nevertheless spoke out to remind the world of Judy's humanity beyond the legend. Together, they formed a living bridge between the woman they knew and the icon the world adored. By the early 21st century, Judy Garland's memory was no longer confined to nostalgia. She had become a permanent cultural fixture, woven into the DNA of entertainment, queerness, and the mythology of celebrity. Her life was proof of how the brightest stars could illuminate and scorch at once. Her afterlife, paradoxically, was far more stable than her real life had ever been. Judy Garland had died in 1969, yet in every way that mattered, she never left. By the second decade of the 21st century, Judy Garland's legend had fully crossed from memory into myth. The woman who had struggled to pay rent in her final years was now spoken of in reverent tones, her name etched beside the greats of American cultural history. Yet the fascination with her story was not only about her talent, it was about the uneasy mixture of triumph and tragedy that made her life so unforgettable. In 2019, the biopic Judy, starring Renee Zellweger, reignited the world's attention. Based on Peter Quilter's play End of the Rainbow, the film dramatized Garland's final London concerts with a mix of exhaustion, brilliance, and vulnerability. Zellweger's performance earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress, and for a moment, Judy Garland dominated the headlines once again, 50 years after her death. Critics debated the accuracy of the portrayal, but audiences were reminded of the magnetic force Judy had been, even in her decline. The film's success proved that Garland's story was not just old Hollywood trivia, it was timeless drama that still cut deep into the modern psyche. Meanwhile, archival projects continued to keep her voice alive. Record labels reissued her albums in digitally remastered form, and unreleased recordings surfaced from the depths of forgotten vaults. Box sets like Judy Garland, Lost Tracks revealed intimate moments of rehearsal and radio broadcasts, moments that stripped away the polish and revealed the raw vulnerability of her artistry. Fans marveled at the fragility and strength contained within the same note, the paradox that had always defined her. Museums and cultural institutions honored her as well. The Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, when it finally opened in Los Angeles, showcased Judy's ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz, treating them not as mere props, but as relics of a shared dream. Audiences lined up to see them, whispering as if entering a chapel. For millions, Dorothy's slippers were more than movie memorabilia. They were emblems of hope, nostalgia, and Judy's unbreakable bond with the fantasy of escape. In the LGBTQ+ community, Judy's name still carried sacred weight. Pride celebrations often invoked her legacy, and young queer performers discovered her anew, understanding her as both a camp icon and a tragic hero. The phrase "friend of Dorothy" had lost its secretive edge in an era of greater visibility, but its origin remained a nod to Judy's eternal role as an unlikely ally and inspiration. Drag queens still performed her songs, often with irony but always with affection, acknowledging that Judy's endurance under pressure mirrored their own battles for acceptance. Her influence continued to ripple through performers who had never met her. Lady Gaga cited Garland as one of her greatest inspirations, weaving her songs into tributes and channeling her theatrical energy. Adele, with her powerhouse vocals and confessional style, echoed Judy's ability to bear her soul in song. Even contemporary actors studying the perils of fame, like Lindsay Lohan or Britney Spears, found their names inevitably linked to Garland in cautionary comparisons. Judy had become a shorthand for the fragile cost of stardom. Her children remained vital custodians of her memory. Liza Minnelli, though struggling with her own health, never failed to honor her mother's brilliance in interviews and appearances. Lorna Luft continued to tour with concerts dedicated to Judy's music, always insisting that the world remember the humor and humanity behind the tragedy. Joey Luft, the most private, surfaced occasionally to remind fans that Judy had been a person before she was an icon. She was Mom, he said in one rare appearance, grounding the myth in simple truth. Even politically, Judy's name carried resonance. Commentators evoked her in discussions of Hollywood labor rights, pointing to her grueling studio years as a prime example of exploitation. Advocates for child actors cited her story as a rallying cry for greater protections. Judy had become more than a performer. She was an emblem of systemic change, proof that artistry should never come at the cost of a human life. And yet the tragedy never fully receded. Every tribute reminded the public of the brevity of her life. Gone at 47, just as she might have entered a new chapter. The what-ifs lingered. Would she have conquered Broadway? Would she have lived to see her daughter win her Oscar? Would she have enjoyed the stability that eluded her? These unanswered questions gave Judy's story its haunting permanence. By the late 2010s and early 2020s, her legacy was stronger than ever. Streaming platforms made her films instantly accessible, allowing Meet Me in St. Louis or A Star is Born to find new admirers with each click. YouTube held countless clips of her television appearances, where audiences marveled at her wit and spontaneity. Social media accounts dedicated to her memory gathered tens of thousands of followers, proving that Judy Garland was as relevant in the digital era as she had been under the studio Klieg lights. Judy Garland's name no longer belonged solely to history. She was a living presence in culture, resurrected with every replay of her voice, every image of her smile, every invocation of her resilience. Half a century after her passing, she was not forgotten, she was more visible than ever. Half a century after Judy Garland's death, the myth of her life had fused so completely with popular culture that separating the woman from the legend seemed impossible. Yet the fascination endured precisely because Judy's story refused to be flattened into a single narrative. She was at once Dorothy Gale and a troubled mother, a triumphant concert diva and a fragile addict, a cultural icon and a lonely woman in a rented London flat. The tension between those identities ensured that her tragedy remained vivid, never fading into the background noise of old Hollywood. London, the city where her life ended, embraced her legacy with a complicated reverence. The Ritz, where she collapsed in 1969, became a point of pilgrimage for die-hard fans who placed flowers outside its doors on anniversaries of her death. Plaques and memorials appeared over time, and though Britain had been only the backdrop for her final act, it had absorbed her story into its cultural memory. In 2017, on what would have been her 95th birthday, fans gathered at her gravesite, which had been relocated from New York to Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, to celebrate her life with song. The relocation itself symbolized something important. Judy had come home, not as a struggling woman exiled abroad, but as a legend welcomed into the pantheon of Hollywood's eternal icons. The fascination with her final days never ceased. Writers and filmmakers returned repeatedly to the image of Judy in London in 1969, her voice strained but powerful, her body frail but her will indomitable. Those concerts, chaotic and emotional, became the subject of endless retrospection. Was she exploited in those last months, paraded on stage for profit by promoters who knew she was collapsing? Or was she choosing survival the only way she knew how, singing until the very end because silence terrified her more than anything? The ambiguity only deepened the allure of her story. Her death itself became a symbol. Found lifeless in the bathroom of her Chelsea flat, Judy Garland seemed to embody the destructive cycle of Hollywood excess and neglect. The coroner's report ruled it an accidental overdose of barbiturates, not a suicide, but the nuance was lost in public imagination. Headlines declared the world had lost the little girl who never grew up. To many, it felt like a cruel cosmic symmetry. Dorothy had gone over the rainbow for good. And yet Judy's influence did not end with mourning. Her story fueled critical debates about celebrity culture and addiction. Journalists and cultural critics compared her to later stars, Marilyn Monroe, Whitney Houston, Amy Winehouse, each of whom echoed Judy's mixture of talent, vulnerability, and tragic demise. Judy's death at 47 became not only an endpoint, but a reference point, a yardstick for measuring the cost of fame across generations. In Hollywood, Judy was belatedly acknowledged with honors she had not lived to enjoy. Her recordings were entered into the Grammy Hall of Fame. The Library of Congress preserved The Wizard of Oz as part of the National Film Registry, citing Judy's central role in shaping American cinematic identity. Tributes at the Oscars, concerts dedicated in her memory, and the ongoing circulation of her recordings turned her absence into a presence that refused to diminish. For her children, Judy's passing remained both a personal wound and a lifelong responsibility. Liza Minnelli, ever candid, admitted that her mother's death left scars she never truly healed, yet she celebrated Judy's artistry with unflinching pride. Lorna Luft wrote movingly about the duality of her mother's life, the legend and the woman behind it, seeking to give the world a more balanced portrait. Joey Luft, protective and quieter, stood guard over the private parts of her memory. Their efforts ensured that Judy was remembered not just as a casualty, but as a fighter who kept giving, even when she had nothing left for herself. Even the artifacts of Judy's life became sacred relics. The ruby slippers from the Wizard of Oz, one of several pairs created for filming, were stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in Minnesota in 2005, sparking an international hunt that lasted 13 years. When they were finally recovered by the FBI in 2018, the story made headlines worldwide. The slippers were treated not as props, but as holy objects, testaments to Judy's enduring hold on the collective imagination. The paradox of Judy Garland's end is that her tragedy amplified her immortality. If she had lived longer, perhaps her star would have dimmed with time, as so many others have. But in dying young, at the cruel intersection of exhaustion and brilliance, Judy was frozen in memory at her most luminous and vulnerable. The world could not forget her because she never gave them the chance. Thus, London 1969 was not just the end of a life, but the beginning of a legend. Judy Garland's body was gone, but her voice, her image, her myth continued to grow, reshaping itself for each new generation. She had sung of rainbows all her life, and in death she became one, vast, untouchable, and impossible to erase. The passage of time has not softened the tragedy of Judy Garland, but it has illuminated the scale of her influence. More than half a century after her death, she remains one of the most studied, imitated, and beloved figures in the history of entertainment. Her story is not simply a cautionary tale of fame's dangers. It is also a testament to endurance, artistry, and the way one human voice can echo through generations. For modern audiences, Judy Garland is everywhere. The Wizard of Oz continues to be broadcast and streamed, each viewing creating new fans who discover Dorothy's trembling innocence and unwavering hope. Concert recordings like Judy at Carnegie Hall remain benchmarks of live performance, their vitality refusing to fade with time. Her face is printed on coffee mugs, t-shirts, and postage stamps, her likeness a brand that continues to generate both revenue and reverence. Unlike many of her contemporaries, Judy is not a relic of the past, but a living presence in culture, forever reborn through her work. Her influence extends across art forms. Singers channel her vulnerability when they dare to crack open their voices mid-phrase. Actors cite her emotional rawness as a model for truth on stage and screen. Writers continue to parse her contradictions, fascinated by how one person could embody both triumph and collapse. To evoke Judy Garland is to evoke an entire emotional spectrum, a reminder that greatness and fragility are often inseparable. Yet her legacy is not without shadows. Conversations about Judy inevitably circle back to the systemic cruelties that defined her career. The pills forced upon her as a teenager, the body shamming from studio executives, the punishing schedules, the exploitative contracts, all of these remain stark warnings of what unchecked ambition and corporate control can do to human lives. In this way, Judy is both celebrated and mourned, revered not only for her talent, but for the sacrifices it extracted. Her story continues to inspire reforms in how Hollywood treats its stars, especially its youngest ones. The LGBTQ+ community, in particular, has kept Judy's flame alive with unmatched devotion. For decades, she has symbolized resilience under fire, a woman who sang through heartbreak and whose music became a code of survival. Younger generations who never experienced her concerts or films firsthand inherit her as a cultural mother, a spirit who stands for authenticity and defiance. At Pride festivals, her songs still surface, proof that Judy's rainbow has outlasted the storms of her own life. Her family remains a central part of this living legacy. Liza Minnelli, despite her own struggles, continues to honor her mother with pride, carrying forward Judy's charisma in a new form. Lorna Luft has built a career partly dedicated to contextualizing Judy's life, reminding the world that behind the legend was a woman of humor, intelligence, and determination. Joey Luft, more private, quietly ensures that Judy's humanity is not forgotten amidst the mythology. Through them, Judy's story continues not as a museum piece, but as a lineage. The broader public fascination with Garland shows no sign of waning. Each decade produces new books, documentaries, and retrospectives. Academic studies treat her as a case study in celebrity, gender, addiction, and queerness. Stage revivals and film portrayals keep her voice alive in the collective consciousness. And yet, none of these secondary tributes ever surpass the source material. Judy herself, standing on a stage, trembling but unbroken, holding an audience in the palm of her hand with a single note. Her tragedy endures because it feels both extraordinary and familiar. Extraordinary in its scale, the rise, the global fame, the catastrophic fall. Familiar in its essence, an insecure child pushed too hard, a woman yearning for love, a human being undone by forces too vast to control. To look at Judy Garland is to see both the majesty of art and the cruelty of life, side by side, inseparable. And so the forgotten tragedy of Judy Garland is not forgotten at all. It has become a permanent chapter in the story of modern culture, retold again and again because it still matters. She is remembered not just for her collapse in London in 1969, but for the millions of moments she lifted hearts before then. Her shadow may be long, but her light is longer. Judy Garland remains more than Dorothy Gale, more than the girl who sang of rainbows, more than the woman who suffered under Hollywood's weight. She is a legend whose artistry still vibrates in every voice that dares to sing honestly, every performer who risks baring their soul, every dreamer who believes in escape. Her story is sad, yes, but it is also eternal.